right. We have a special guest. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Coach. I'm your host, Coach Marcus Smith. We have a living legend in the building. A living legend, I tell you. He is a Tucson sports icon, all right? He's one of the best hitting coaches in all of college baseball. A very decorated playing and coaching career that extends to the University of Arizona. He is now currently with us at Pima Community College. So without further ado, because they don't need to hear my voice anymore, they need to hear you. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jerry Stitt.
Thanks, Marcus. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Love it. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great, yeah.
That's good.
Everything's good. We're back in school. Pima's Athletics, they've started practice. Looks like everything's good. Going to have some good teams, so it's
I like it. We're thriving as an athletic department, right?
We are thriving.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's get started. I don't know if the listeners are going to know this, but I'm going to inform them on this. You were a former University of Arizona head baseball coach. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. That's big time. That's first class right there.
Yeah.
Before we go into that, here's kind of like where we're going to start. In 1980 and 1986, you helped the University of Arizona reach that national title status. Tell me about that. What was that like?
The national championships is the pinnacle of college baseball, of course, and it was one of those things. 80, it was my second year on the staff. My first year was 79, and before that, I had been at South Point High School. I'd played at the U of A. I was a first-team All-American and had a couple forgettable years in professional baseball. Coach Wing called me up. Coach Wing, who is he's the living legend in Tucson. I mean, he's one of the great baseball minds that ever walked the earth, and we're all fortunate to have him teach us how to coach. And so we're up at Grand Canyon, and he called me up, and he says, "Hey, would you be interested in coming back to the U of A as hitting coach, assistant coach, hitting coach?" And I was like, yeah.
That's
and
a no-brainer.
Says, yeah. I said, the hitting coach they had was leaving. He was going back to Kansas or wherever he was from. And so he says, Coach Kendall asked me if you would be interested. And I said, well, tell Coach Kendall, how fast do you want me to be there? So I went the next weekend. I went down to Tucson and met with Coach Wing and Coach Kendall, and he said, just be here the 1st of September, and we'll get rolling. So that was the fall of '78 that I started, and I was fortunate enough to have really great players. They were okay the year before, and we were in '78, and we were really good in '79. We went to the College World Series, and I was Terry Francona, who everybody knows. He was our second star. Our first star was Brad Mills, who was a returning All-American third baseman. And he was Terry's bench coach for all those years that Terry was managing in the big leagues. And I've done a lot of clinics of all kinds, little league, high school, major college, huge clinics. Yeah. The Cherry Hills Clinic in New Jersey, where there's 6,000 coaches or whatever, and spoke at the ABCA, American Baseball Coaches Association's national convention 6 or 8 times, whatever. And every time I do a major clinic, I always give Brad the nod that I say, here's a player that I learned more from than he learned from me as his coach. And it like I say, it was one of those just things that I couldn't have been in a better situation. And that's why he was with Terry for so long, because he was the most prepared individual I'd ever been around, and ever since I've ever been around, except for maybe Chip Hale.
And Chip just got the job at U of A, right?
Chip just got the job at U of A, and I will speak about Chip as we go along. But so that year in '79 was preparation for the '80 championship team, and Terry was the Golden Spikes winner, the best player in college baseball, and that was just a magical year. And one of those things that Coach Kendall always went by the book, and which we all did. And so we scuffled a little bit in '81, '82, and by '83 we were back. And Chip Hale came in with his class in '84. And so by '85 we were back at the national championships in Omaha, and in '86 we won it again. And Chip was our team captain and leader, and just a force on the field. So,
yeah, not everybody gets to a national championship, let alone wins it.
Yeah,
and you've done it twice.
We've done it twice. Yeah.
You've had success at the Division I level as a player, as a coach, and we're not even getting to your head coaching career yet. But what do those years from '80 to '86, what do those mean to you as a coach going forward?
The big years were 80, 86, 89 was probably the best team we ever had. And that was with J.T. Snow and Alan Zinner, Trevor Hoffman, Kevin Long, Scott Erickson, names people know. And that was just a great team. And then in 92 and 93, those were two of the best teams we ever had. 93 was the best in my mind and in many coaches' mind, and it was the best hitting team in college baseball history. And we lost in the final game at Oklahoma State, so did not go to Omaha. But those were great teams, and just watching how you build a championship and how many of our players went on to professional baseball and were ready to play when they got there because of the system that we had, that Coach Kendall instilled in everybody. And this is how you prepare to be a baseball player. And one of the things on and off the field, academics, whatever it was that had to do with college baseball, we were really good at it.
So then we fast forward, you become the head coach.
Yeah.
Now, what is that like?
Well, I was there 18 years with Coach Kendall, and the last few years were a little rough. After that 93 year, and like you said, everything by the book, and every other college program in the country was not going by the book. That he would not offer a scholarship to anybody until he had a scholarship available. Not thinking, this guy's going to sign, we're going to lose him, so we'll have a scholarship. Just didn't do that. So it came back to bite us many times, and so 94 was really a bad year because every guy on that 93 team was great. I mean, it was great, and every guy signed. So we were left pretty much with nothing, and we did okay in 95, 96, and then Coach decided to retire. He'd pretty much had, he'd coached for so long and been so successful, and obviously the greatest coach in college baseball history. And, the ABCA had the Ethics Award named for him, the Jerry Kendall Ethics in Coaching Award, and they give it every year at the National Convention. So that's kind of coach he was. So I took over, and we were coming back a little bit. It was still a little rough, and I did 5 good years, and then was let go for no apparent reason, and stayed on at the U of A as a associate athletic director, and did a lot of academic stuff, and counseling, and just kind of doing what I could do. And then finally, just after 25 years, actually it was 27 years, but after that amount of time, I just left the U of A.
So, and as your head coaching career goes at U of A, you have a winning record.
Right.
And you've had success at the highest level in college athletics.
Yeah.
And in kind of your opinion, you've been a part of 2 championship teams. You've been a part of quite a few teams that are considered, some of the greatest teams in college baseball. What is the difference between those championship teams and the teams that came so close?
We underestimate this as coaches. One of the most important things in a season going into playoffs is physical health. Your players have to be healthy to be on the field.
Yeah.
And like I said, 89 was the best team we ever had. And Kevin Long, who's our center fielder and our hit third and our team leader, team captain, and he's one of the most renowned hitting coaches in Major League Baseball now. And he got hurt in the first game of the playoffs and couldn't play and he always reminds me, we would have won that thing if I hadn't got hurt. I said, Kevin, I have no doubt that we would have won it if you hadn't got hurt. Because our backup was a freshman, and he was good, but he wasn't Kevin Long, and Kevin's leadership on the field, and, he was just a great hitter and could really go get him in center field and just team leader. And so that put a big hole in our team. And in 93, our starting pitcher went into the playoffs and hurt his shoulder and didn't pitch in the regionals at all. And so we were left short with that, and we had to fill in and just wasn't the same. So I'd say physical health is really important. But along with that, you have to have leadership. And on that 80 team, Terry Francona was the leader of the team, and he just basically called the shots, and the rest of the team did what he did. And in 86, it was Chip Hale. He was our captain and our leader, and he would not allow the rest of the team to not play to their absolute top level potential.
That's a great problem to have.
Yeah, and you just pray to have those kind of guys, and they're pretty rare. They're pretty rare. Yeah, and Kevin was our guy in '89, and Robbie Moen was our guy in '93. But without our top flight pitchers in '93, we could hit all we want. But if you gave up more runs than you scored, you obviously you're not on top. So.
Right. So we fast forward. We're done with U of A. We're at Pima now. How have you been involved in Pima's baseball program?
When I first started here, I started helping out, and Edgar Soto was the baseball coach, and I'd known Edgar since he was like 8 or 9 years old, playing Little League over here in Western. And I always helped as much as I could, and doors always open. My mind is always open. Anybody wants to talk to me, and I've had a lot of the players at Pima. They come into my office or out on the field in the cage, and hey, and I do what I can to help them out. And we had that one year where Rich Alday came back, and then Coach Hockamy came in, and Hawk is he's one of my guys. He was coaching at Pueblo High School when I was head coach at the U of A, and he went, his Rincon, had gone to Rincon High School, and I knew Hawk, and so he was winning at Pueblo, and it was hard to win at Pueblo at that time, and he was winning and doing a great job, and so I called him up and said, hey, would you like to be a graduate assistant here? And it's one of those same things like when Coach Kendall asked me, I said, how fast can I get there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're not going to say no. You're not even going to ask a question.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. When do you want me there?
Yep. That's what, when Jim Monaco called me and said, hey, pal, do you want to become the head coach? Why do you don't even have to call me. Just put my name down.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm on my way.
Yeah. So Hawk came over, did a great job, and got a job immediately at El Paso Community College, went to New Mexico, and now we're fortunate enough to have him here. And he's really just a good man, good baseball man, great coach. And so I've helped out really a lot the last couple of years on the field, in the cages, and whatever he asks me to do, I'll help. So.
What's the biggest difference in your eyes going from Division I baseball to junior college baseball?
The only difference I know is that, kids are kids. They're 18 and 19 when they come into college, and they're kids. 20 and 21-year-olds are also kids. It's just that at Division I or four-year schools, they're 2 years older.
Yeah.
And most of we always say kids are at community college for a reason. And most of the time it's either they're not good enough to go to Division I, or academically they're not ready for the college experience. And that's not always true, because we always get kids that are ready for Division I.
Yeah.
It's just that they haven't had the opportunity to go. And so that's the biggest difference, is that the kids are just a little bit younger, and they take a little more discipline, a little more putting your arm around them, a little more talking in their ear to try to get them to grow up. When I first took the job at South Point, my dad, who was a high school coach in Phoenix for years and years at West Phoenix High School, he said to me, just remember, they're just kids. And I always remembered. And when I got the job at the U of A, he said, just remember, they're just kids. Same message. And I was like, well, okay. And they are. They're just, and they got to learn. They have to learn and how to be adults off the field, how to be a top flight baseball presence on the field. So, you have to coach them along in that way. So,
I remember we all had a meeting. It had to be months ago as a department, and I remember the last thing I heard on the meeting was you say, "And remember, guys, they're just kids." Ever since that day, I've looked at my roster and program differently. Now, obviously, me being close to age as them, I still look at them as, they're going to make mistakes, and we can't expect perfection. Now, obviously, we have a standard of excellence. We want to get there, but they're just kids. And I tell myself that all the time. And I remember that you were the one that said that.
I'm glad. Thanks. Yeah.
So, as you are a very influential coach, any baseball player that's not coming to you, either just one doesn't know that we have you or they're crazy. Who in your coaching career and playing career, who's the most influential person on who you are today?
Like say my dad was a coach, and he was always our coach, Little League, Pony League, Legion, while he was coaching high school ball. And he was extremely influential, because a lot of the drills that I have done throughout my career, and some of them are pretty famous, that it came from him, and drills I talked about at the big conventions, I invented the 3-plate drill, or he did. I tweaked his drill, the ball hit drill, which is, Coach Johnson at the U of A, he told me when he came in, he said, I'm using that drill every day. And I said, well, you're going to hit if you do. If you don't, you might be lucky to hit. So, and then a lot of others, and just, repetitions on a tee, and the different kinds of drills that you do, I learned. And then my high school coach, he was a real disciplinarian, and I learned from him. And Coach Sansett, really a hard guy. I mean, he was. Off the field, he'd give you the shirt off his back. I mean, he really would. You need something, he'd do it. But on the field, you better toe the line. So I learned that discipline from him. And then as I went along, I've always been able to talk to other coaches and share ideas and just tell them, that's not right what you're teaching them. That's not right. Or, hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to go with that one. And just talk to them face to face and get them to swing over to what I think is right, which generally is. And
you heard it first.
That's right. It's
nothing new.
No, it's nothing new. And so all kinds of difference. Benny Hines, who was at Arizona State, when he was at Azusa Pacific, I picked his brain like crazy because those guys could really hit. And I learned a lot from him. And we still talked when he was at the U of A, and a couple of drills I learned from him. And he kind of started them, and I tweaked them and made them really good and used them. And so a lot of good coaches, yeah.
It seems like everybody can relate to having a good coach in the past that pushes them forward. And I know you are that to many kids. When you were head coach and you were at the helm of a Division I program, what did you run your program based off of? If you could give us like 3 keys, what were you running it based on?
Well, the number one thing was kids were there because we recruited them to be Wildcats. And when you're a Wildcat, especially in the baseball program, you're going to be a good human being. You're going to pay attention to your academics. When you leave here, you're either going to have a degree or you're going to be able to come back and get one pretty fast.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn the system and leave here being as good a baseball player as you can be in the number of years you're here. So those are the things that we based it on. And it was the same system that Coach Kendall taught all those years. Yeah.
As we kind of move along, you have earned the name Dr. Stitt.
Yeah.
I'm going to read that your dissertation that was presented was the case for aligning athletic department goals and objectives with the educational and social mission of our universities. Now, if you could just kind of, in a summarized version, what is that trying to accomplish? What are the goals and the social missions of universities that we want athletics to kind of gear towards?
Just as an aside, that was one of the hardest things I ever did was get my doctorate while coaching full time. There's requirements. In fact, it took me 10 years and 1 semester. I had to petition to get an extra semester to finish my doctorate. And there's rules. One of them is in 1 semester you have to take a minimum of 9 units. And 9 units coaching full time was really tough.
Yeah.
But I wasn't getting much sleep, and we were still doing good. And so I finally got my degree, wrote the dissertation. And the thing that was interesting to me was how different colleges around the West, and that's what it was based on. I interviewed coaches, athletic directors, assistant athletic directors from 10 different colleges in the Western United States. And the disconnect between what the mission of the university is and the mission of the athletic program, in some cases, were miles apart. And that's one of the things that athletics is part of the university. University isn't part of the athletic program, and that's what we try to do here at Pima, is stay within the mission of the college with the athletic department. And sometimes it's not easy, but you have to do it. And that was what my dissertation was all about. And one of the main things was that as I went through interviewing all these people, it was like I'd ask I won't say his name, but he's an assistant athletic director at one of the great West Coast universities. I'm sitting in his office, and I'd say, tell me about your mission policy. And he looked at me and says, do you mean our admission policy? I said, no, your mission. What's your mission as a university? He says, well, I kind of stumbled around, and he didn't know what the mission of the university was. And so that's kind of where I came upon this, is that it's got to be aligned. If it's not, you're going to have the NC2A is going to be on your tail all the time for violations and different things. So,
well, Dr. Stitt, I hope we can continue making that dissertation true, and I hope we can continue pushing Pima's athletic agenda and pushing Pima's mission and aligning it with our Pima Community College mission for academics as well. Dr. Stitt, it has been great talking to you. I want to thank you for coming on. We're definitely going to do this again. This is 100%. We're doing this again. Other than that, this has been Dr. Jerry Stitt, everybody. And in the meantime and all times, thanks for listening.